At the southern border, the humanitarian crisis is growing every day more dire and every day more deadly. This weekend, a young woman and her two children drowned while trying to cross the Rio Grande near Eagle Pass, Texas, which some lawmakers are calling the epicenter of the crisis. The Eagle Pass Fire Department says it recorded 43 migrant drownings last year, up from 8 to 12 a year they were seeing before 2020. Joining us now is the chief of the Eagle Pass Fire Department, Manuel Mello. Chief, thank you for your time. Your team is one of the first responders to any crisis. What kind of calls have you been seeing?
It ranges from minor calls to major calls. Example, you get people with cuts and bruises, hyperthermia. You get females that are pregnant crossing the river within minutes, going into labor on the side of the river. We had one call where we had this person had an accident in Mexico, comes over, he's got a broken femur. He crossed the river with a broken femur. I mean, that is incredible, and so much pain.
Yeah. What's the last year been like for you all there?
It's been tough. We've had several EMS calls to the river's edge. It's been hectic. The EMS personnel, they're tired of it. As I mentioned before, one of my personnel, one of my hardworking guys that go out with the Swiftwater team, they mentioned one day that they were tired of seeing dead bodies. That really hits home, and it really hurts me to hear these guys say that.
Yeah, and what kind of an impact has it had on your infrastructure, on the city? I know that, for example, you all have a number of ambulances. What kind of impact has that had?
Oh, that has a big impact. The cost itself, the maintenance of the vehicles. Right now, we've got 2 trucks out at the city shop getting repaired due to the wear and tear of the vehicles. Overtime, just the overtime, I think in 6 months we carried about $375,000 worth of pay for that 5th ambulance.
And Chief, you know, these are men, women, and children. What are the things that stick out to you that will forever be ingrained in you from what you all have seen just in this last year?
Just in this last year, the injuries, the drownings, the children that have drowned, that's what actually stays in your mind most of the time.
Chief Manuel Mello, thank you so much for being with us. I very much appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
And with us now to continue our conversation is former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke. Congressman, always a pleasure to see you. And just, you know, I know you're an El Paso guy. You're someone who is so committed and so sensitive to the reality of what is happening in large parts of the border. I'm just thinking, what do you hear and what do you see and what do you think when you hear what the chief was talking about? Little babies drowning and people with broken femurs who still cross that river.
We're just seeing a tragic absence of leadership on the part of Congress, on the part of our governor, who has politicized this situation and contributed to the tragic deaths that we are learning about. And the failure, frankly, of presidential administrations going back as long as I can remember, who have failed to make this a priority. And the result of that is, in that vacuum, you have Chief Mello and his department and the taxpayers of Eagle Pass having to front hundreds of thousands of dollars to address a crisis that is not of their making. In that vacuum, you have Governor Greg Abbott taking control of a federal responsibility, preventing Border Patrol agents from potentially rescuing some of these people who have drowned in that river, including those 2 children and that young mother. Right now, today, in fact, the president is going to meet with congressional leaders from both parties, from both chambers. He has an opportunity, and I want all of us to help him make the most of that, to exert the kind of leadership that we've been missing right now. Let's make sure that there are safe, legal, orderly pathways for people to come here that ensure that we can secure our border and also guarantee the safety of migrants who want to come here and legitimately contribute to this country. Let's speed up the asylum process. So those who don't belong here are sent back to the country from which they came. Those who belong here can legally and orderly and safely stay here. Let's make sure there are more opportunities for economic migrants to lawfully work. Work authorizations from the president, hopefully working with Congress to do that, will help. But Jose, the deal on the table today from Senate Republicans is a reversion to Trump-era policies that contributed to the crisis that we're seeing right now. The president must reject that and work towards something much better.
You know, we just heard a little while ago, I don't know if you got a chance with Garrett Haake, the Speaker of the House, saying that now's not a time to even talk about immigration reform or comprehensive immigration reform. My question would be, well, when is a good time to talk about comprehensive immigration reform? And when is a good time to actually deal with things that, as you so eloquently remind us, it's costing the life of men, women, and children who are making incredible sacrifices just for the opportunity to request asylum? What is it, Congressman, that needs to be done that isn't being done?
Well, you're absolutely right about the Republicans. Representative Troy Nehls of Texas has said that he's not willing to work with President Biden because he doesn't want to give him a success in an election year, even if it means securing the border and addressing this crisis that we see. Speaker Mike Johnson has said essentially the same. So I think the president has an opportunity right now, if Congress will not work with him, to use his executive powers to improve that asylum process, to make sure that we're dealing with any fraud within it, to ensure that there are more work authorizations for those who want to contribute to the economic success of this country and pay their own way while they are here, to use that parole authority judiciously, as he did with Haitians and Nicaraguans, and saw their apprehension numbers drop by 92%. So there's a way that he can control this chaos. And then it's important for all of us to support him in his reelection, because a second term, if he chooses to make this his #1 priority, could mean comprehensive immigration reform for the first time since Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States. So it's a tall order, but this is a big crisis, and I think we really need to focus on it and see it through.
Do you have any optimism that the president could indeed put that as a top priority anytime?
I do. And frankly, I think if he does what I just described right now, not only will it help to alleviate the crisis that we're seeing, I think it will improve his political prospects in November of this year. If he takes the Republican deal that's on the table, it will only worsen this crisis. You'll have more unauthorized apprehensions. You'll have more chaos and disorder on the border. That's exactly what Donald Trump, that's exactly what Greg Abbott wants. That's why Republicans are doing what they are doing right now. It's part of the constitutional crisis that Greg Abbott is provoking. It's in part to damage and harm the president's political prospects. I hope that he doesn't walk into the trap that Republicans are laying for him right now. Let's support him in doing the right thing.